Hello everyone, and welcome to Drama Night. I got this with me. There we go. Okay. So I actually already have a draft prepared for tonight. So this will be an inking stream. We're doing a little bit of inking. So I'll be inking this for tonight, you know. Let me just turn that down a bit. Yeah. What's the size of my brush real quick? Yeah, that looks fine. We'll just go a little bit steady, you know, maybe a little slow. That's fine. We got all night to do inking. I don't need to rush myself. Probably will anyway. You know how I am. Ooh. How big's the eraser? Ah, okay. Okay. We'll just look all right. Looks a little bit awkward, but we'll go back to that. That's the nice part about digital, right? Ah, hello, Cirrus. see that. Oh, this one's gonna get awkward to... Oh, yeah. You cooked soup? Did you go to the soup store? Did you go to Soup Sears? A bit too sour, then just put sugar in it. Put sugar or honey in it. Maybe some apple. I do that anytime I make like a stew. I like to like put in a little bit of honey. It's partially a preference thing between like crushed tomatoes and tomato paste, but tomato paste is prepared differently, so they are different things. You know, on how to like preserve them and stuff. So that will inevitably give them a different taste, texture, and how they affect the dish overall. Hello, Michael. Hello, Crash. Yeah, that. Oh, that arc looks a little better. Okay. Itu. What am I drawing? I'm drawing a bird. Hmm. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Huh. Hmm. Oh, I guess I did not finish cleaning up that line. Whoops. Need to do that. There we go. Okay, let's try to do inking a circle. Not very fun. Yeah, don't. Burb. Hello, Q. Let's see how well I can get this to work. It looks okay. Not amazing. Maybe if I... lean into that curve a bit more. Maybe. Just maybe. Okay. Yeah, okay. That looks just alright. I think that works a little better. That angle's going to look a little bit weird. Let's just see how that goes. Yeah, yeah, I think that looks a little better. There. That needs a little bit of cleaning up. Just on this curve. Okay, so now... Okay. Hello, Frost. Get rid of these for now. Almost to 200 subs? Yeah. It's growing just steadily. Well, I hope that line works. I mean, the beak probably needs some work on the shape at the top. We'll worry about that later. We'll worry about that later. Eepy, you gotta go sleep, Q. You just a little sleepy boy. If you go silent, it means me asleep. I see Q. Hello, Chase. What are we drawing? We're drawing a bird. Just drawing a bird. Hot bird. Aren't most birds hot? Is this an OC? Nah. I guess technically it can be, but like, I don't know. I was asked to draw Sid Highwind, but as a bird. You wonder who possibly suggested that. Yeah, that's true. Does not take much effort to figure that out. I guess I might as well just fill this in. There we go. Yeah, that looks okay. You're cringe, Yu-Gi-Oh! Ah, terrible, terrible. You post clown format, right? By that I mean Master Duel. It's easier to see. That's true. Man, at the rate that like the TCG/OCG is going, it feels like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just gonna die within the decade. Especially since it's like not the main format in Japan anymore. Is it Pokemon now? No, I mean for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, OCG is... they run their own tournaments, yes, but... none of the marketing... almost none of the marketing is for the OCG in Japan. You see a lot more marketing and actual merchandising for Rush Duels. And those tournaments keep getting higher and higher. Attendance and sales are starting, like the sales are starting to become closer and closer between Rush Duels and the OCG, that I'm like, huh. That and Rush Duels is actually playtested. Which is amazing. Hello, Charles. Maybe one day we can get Rush Duels. I don't think we will. Or at least it'll be very awkward. Because now we're 5 years behind on Rush Duels. Like, how would they manage that? Rush Duels flopped in the West. It was never released here. Well, it was either... Was it 2019 or was it 2020? It's basically been 5 years. I'm rounding up a little bit, but it's still like... Oh no. And everyone I ask that has actively played both formats just goes, yeah, Rush Duels is just the better format. Because we're like almost 200 episodes into the anime. I think we're over 200 episodes. And the fact that that's a thing, right? Like, Rush Duels is the one that gets the new video games. Rush Duels is the one that has the anime. They count the sales for Rush Duels differently from regular Yu-Gi-Oh! They're actually like separate on like the charts. It's a little bit weird. But yeah, there's like no way for us to like to get the Rush Duel format in the Western world without it being like weird. Because what do they do? Start from set 1? A product that like came out that long ago, like, no. They'd probably have to, like, start us in the next block, or, and then just give us legacy products to catch us up. Like, I think that's probably the best bet. But then you have the issue of sets having legacy archetypes for rush duels. Yeah, 4 years is too much. No one's gonna want to play a game that's 4 years behind. Especially when the anime gets dubbed. So everyone's gonna be watching, like, kids in the West, right, are currently watching the Rush Duels anime. Like, they're more than halfway done through the original Rush Duel season. Like, in the dub. Like, they can't just, like, a year from now release set 1, right? That's just... that'd be really weird. Because kids will be watching, like, Go Rush with a completely different cast and archetypes being used. When, like, if we get the product, it's like, here's 7 Road Magician. Oh, yeah, because, like, the Rush Duels anime and video game all got dubbed. The only thing we don't have for Rush Duels in English is the actual card game. It is very odd. A big series of bad decisions, one might say. Because we got the Switch game, and it's fully dubbed. It's so weird. It's now in Duel Links. You can play, like, the Duel Links version of Rush Duels. Which I don't really like, but hey, it's there. I personally think skills ruin that format, but that's just me. That's just me. Was there a reason why? Oh, you're funny, Cirrus, thinking that they would actually, that Konami of all companies would release an official statement. There is only rumors. Baseless rumors. It's like Konami doesn't even credit their employees. You think they're gonna actually, like, make a statement like that? Like, nah. Nah. That's not gonna happen. Hello, Selkie. But honestly, I would be pretty glad if just, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Died out of the blue. Would be such a... like, oh, that headache is gone. Great. Let's hope Pokemon and Magic are next. Maybe then we'll get the based format that is Duel Masters. Well, I guess we already have based Magic the Gathering, because we do have Wicross again. Or I guess now. Because that's a weird, funny, like, line of thought where it's like, oh, Wicross is a hack of Duel Masters, which itself is a hack of Magic the Gathering. And if you play all three, it's really neat to see, like, mechanically where things were dropped and how they decided to streamline certain mechanics and resources. You know, since Duel Masters got rid of what is it? Duel Masters got rid of lands and instant speed effects to make the game a lot more streamlined and easier to play. And then you just have like Wicross over here going like, okay, but like people like quick effects. We'll give people back quick effects, but the timing will be restricted. And we'll have a better resource system. Or at least I prefer a consumable resource system to a renewable one, because suddenly players have to pay attention to their own resources rather than just mindlessly tapping out every turn. Because even aggro decks in Wicross can't just spend all of their mana. They actually have to think about what turns to use it. Though, you know, if they open Lancelot, they're going to use Lancelot. That one's a no-brainer of, I can spend 1 mana on that. Oh, serious. Battle Spirits is already dead in America. Like, it's releasing product, but it's already dead. It will not last the year. They fucked up too much in, like, sets 2 and 3. And Lorcana now has this big reputation of being one of the worst quality control in the industry right now. Which is annoying. Because I bought a Lorcana starter deck a little while back, and, yeah, some of these cards aren't legal for play anymore. They are so miscut. It is wild, actually. Where I'm like, how was this allowed to get printed? Like, where is it? I don't know. It's in this pile somewhere. I have a card that the top is cut off, and you see the bottom of the next card on the sheet poking out at the bottom of the card. Because, like, the cards are just horribly miscut. And it's not even, like, consistent about it. It's, like, sometimes it's heavily shifted towards the top or the side. And I'm like, how did this happen? So a lot of people already don't like the game because no one likes buying, you know, products and it's already, like, busted out the box. I mean, Magic the Gathering is known for that for a little bit. One of my friends got real upset that he bought a $150 like pre-con, right? Because it's a special edition thing, and it has a whole bunch of like foil lands that are only printed in this box, right? All of the mountains in the set were damaged. All of them were damaged out of the box. And he is not allowed to get a refund for it. Thanks, Wizards. So all of those, like, premium mountains, like, not legal for play. You do be that way. See, Selkie, because it's a premium product that was only, like, only has one print run. Like, all of Wizard's premium product are like that. They can't just, like, print more. Right? So, like, what's out there is out there. Yeah, no, they won't. Like, that's just is what it is. Like... And the whole point of the product was that it was a very restricted, limited stock. So, like, replacing it would be a huge hassle. Especially when, like, the deck... Did it sell out on pre-orders? I forget. But, like, you run into that issue, right? That, and it takes around, like, 6 months to fully print product like that. Like, from finishing... Like, from the moment you put in the company puts in the orders to getting it out in the public, it takes 6 months. So it's like, even if they did reprint it, like, you know... Because, like, a lot of card games recently have had, like, the worst damage... Like, the worst, damage control. Granted, Wicross isn't having any issues, so... So, Cirrus, they are considered marked cards, and aren't legal because of that. Because the way that the mountains were damaged is that they have a impression embedded onto them. Like a paper clip was on it when they pressed the card. So, because of that, you could actually feel the card when you're shuffling. So that is why that kind of stuff is illegal. And miscut cards are illegal for roughly the same reason. Basically anything that you could, like, identify the card while shuffling makes the card illegal for play. Unless you want, like, everyone to just be cheating all the time. Like, that's the alternative, right? So, like, it sucks that the manufacturer, like, won't replace it, because that should be a thing, but... Actually, Dragon Ball did that. They had a set that was, like, horribly fucked in terms of... what's it called? Like, printing. And if you brought your cards to the next regionals, they would replace everything for free. Which was really nice of them. So some companies do that. Not all of them. You can't be able to tell cards apart without actually looking at the front. Yes, but it's still like... it's still an issue, though. Like, cards that are damaged on the front, like, not even just miscut, just, like, damaged, aren't legal for play either. Like, maybe miscuts are technically legal for play in some games. I know some of them there aren't. But that one is actually, like, it depends game to game. Because I know Pokemon is really asinine about some of that stuff. But Pokemon has a bunch of really annoying rulings about tournament play. Like, you can't have curved cards in... Yes, but Cirrus, now you're asking them to... Well, because remember, Lorcana doesn't have a, like, regional scene, right? So how would they replace the cards? Like, how? Mail it in? That's not happening. Well... And a lot of games are currently having, like, quality control issues. Mainly because they're just, like, trying to get everything out as cheap as possible. Which is why I'm still kind of sitting there going, like... I have not seen a misprinted Wicross card yet. Interesting. Or it's so rare that, like... doesn't even matter. And Digimon is okay with their print runs. They've had like one set that was pretty bad. Like, so the card quality is usually good in Digimon in terms of printing. The text on the cards is another issue. Because we've had several sets in a row where they just print the wrong effect on a card. Yep. And that's the player's job to figure out the difference. So you just have cards that you have to just know the effect of. You know, because they just printed it wrong. A little bit tragic. But most players like already look at the Japanese cards in the first place, and most people already know the effects of all the Digimon cards, even when they're misprinted. The problem is when a new player walks in and they go like, "Oh, I can do this, right?" And it's like, no. Sorry, buddy. Even disregarding the name issue that Digimon cards normally have. Like, I was chatting with a girl at Locals not too long ago, and she was like, man, the instant we get a card that targets a V card, like, it's over for the Vmon deck. Like, in English, specifically. Because of Demi Vmon. Because that Digimon's name is Chibimon. It does not have V in the name. So then they would have to create a game-wide errata that any card with Demi Vmon is treated as Chibimon. And that would just be real annoying. Yeah, it's so in English they call it VEE Mon, and in Japanese it's just the letter V hyphen Mon, and I do like that more. Makes things a little bit easier. At least on some things it's worded that way. Maybe that's just like a shortening of it, but Looks a little bit cleaner, not gonna lie. Because it's like, man, how many main character decks are gonna have the name problem, right? We already have Takuya's deck and Taichi's deck having, like, naming issues. But just in English, you know, because the English dub was stupid when we were kids, I guess. It's like the only way I can phrase that. It's like, ah, oh, but he kind of looks like Greymon. Let's put Greymon in his name, even though it's fucking Vitramon. That's not gonna bite us in the ass at some point. And they don't even bother having reminder text for the Garurumon ruling of all the Digimon that have Garurumon in their name in English, but not in Japanese. That one's really annoying. At least the Greymon one, it is written on some cards, and by that I mean like just Nokia. Here we go. Well, you know, that's just card game shenanigans. Yu-Gi-Oh! Went through it for a handful of years. And by that I mean like a decade. I remember Frog the Jam. Or what was it? Red Eyes Black Chick. And all of the rulings with that card because they changed its name. Harpy's brother? Oh my god. Yeah, that one's pretty bad as well. Because they had to change an entire archetype's name just because two vanilla monsters had the same name in English, and they just didn't want to have to reprint those cards. Which was the Moonlight archetype, which got changed to Luna Lights. I'm just like, but why though? You could just errata the old cards that definitely didn't have Moonlight in their name. But whatever. This is Konami, of America specifically, and they do not make any sensible decisions. I mean, have you seen half the TCG exclusive archetypes? Jesus Christ. Were these even play tested? I love how, like, every single time they print, like, a TCG, like, original archetype, it is either busted as hell or unplayable. And it's like, oh, you can tell these weren't play tested. Like, I think the one that still baffles me to this day is FAs. Because I'm just like, how was this meant to work? Ashen seem to be unplayable. Yeah, they do. I read like 2 of their cards and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? What the fuck are we doing? Like, it's kind of hard to be excited for any TCG exclusive archetype. I think the only TCG exclusive archetype that both worked and was actually playable, not competitively, but genuinely playable, was Time Thieves. Which, ruined locals for a couple years? Not competitive play, but ruined locals. Since everything was printed in common. Very fun, very fun. Well, that one's at least like a digital card game, right? So it's never going to work properly. Because you can't really bring the best TCG design into a digital game. That and digital players are always worse than physical game players. That's just kind of is what it is. No hard feelings with that, just that's the truth. I remember when I was, the last year that I was still playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes I would just ask my opponent, you play Master Duel, don't you? And they would say yes, and then ask how I knew. I'd have to be like, just a hunch. Just a hunch. It's not even a face cam thing, serious. It's actually just because of how digital... Like, people play digital card games differently. And how you would inevitably design them is also different. Because they're half designed for automation. So there's inherently less player input in a digital game. It's the reason why, like, you can always tell a Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG player versus a Master Duel player. Always. Because a Master Duel player will never actually declare triggers, and they'll always miss timing on effects. Because they're used to the automated version of the game. So it's really funny to have to tell a player, oh, you cucked yourself out of your own skill. No, we're not going back. I'm sorry, you chose 0 for your skill, because that's a legal number to choose for some effects. You know? Also, it's a you may, so, you know, fuck off, I guess. It's like, get good, scrub. That, and they take up so much time during their turns. Oh my god. I know this is like a problem I have with every card game, where like, if I have time to pull up my phone and browse Twitter during our game, you're playing the game wrong. Like, it's like, please don't attend a tournament if you don't know what your cards do. Please. Alright, see you, Frost. No, Michael, what always baffles me is when I pass turn, my opponent draws for turn, and then they start reading the cards in their hand. Because I'm like, bitch, you had my entire turn to read the cards in your hand. Like, what do you mean? Like... Because, you know, I'm usually one of those people, if you hand me a deck, I can usually parse what I'm supposed to do pretty fast. With, like, the cards in hand. And with Yu-Gi-Oh, you just read the cards in your hand, read your extra deck, and then you can usually figure out the combo lines from there. Especially once you know that half the text on a Yu-Gi-Oh card is filler and you don't have to read it. So you just learn what lines of text to actually read. Makes it real fast. Or you just scan the card and see if it says Special Summon or Negate and only read those cards. You know. What other cards are worth reading? Well. Sometimes I'm just like, I'll stare at a player and go like, do you have zero problem-solving skills? Like, I was playing against someone in Digimon, right? And they had a graveyard reanimation strategy, right? And they just didn't resolve half of their effects that let them draw a card and discard a card in hand. And then, like, complained later in the game that's like, oh, well, I had nothing to reanimate. And I'm like, you gave up your effects? What do you mean? You got to choose your targets, and you still chose 0. Some people. No. So Yu-Gi-Oh, it's because that's a private zone, Cirrus. No card game really lets you tuck a card into your opponent's private zone for, like, ruling issues. Also for player convenience issues. Just one Parasite card. Yeah, and they never did that again. And what a ruling nightmares that one Parasite card is. Michael, have you read the rulings for that card? Like... There's one card in Yu-Gi-Oh that lets you do that, Cirrus, and no one plays it because no one wants to. It's a headache because of the rulings involved. You know, because it's going to inevitably have a different card sleeve, so you know where it is at all times in your deck. So the card doesn't work. That, and you can actually cheat with the card. There is actually a, like... You can straight up cheat with it. Because what, it activates if it's drawn from being put into the deck? Was that what it was? Because you could... It has a really odd shuffling ruling. Where, you know, in a card game, when you shuffle your deck, you have to let your opponent, like, also shuffle the deck. Well, because the Parasite card has a different sleeve, you can just put the card on top of their deck. So they have to draw it. Because technically, it's a random shuffle. But you know what card it is because of the card sleeve. And that's totally legal to do. But most people don't know that. Look, Michael, I know what it's like to torture a judge. I played Pacificus, the Phantasm City, which is... You know, it's one of those cards that, like, every judge needs to know what this card does, because, players won't. The player playing the deck will, because it has some of the funniest resolution rulings I've ever read in Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's one of those things that, like... At least it wasn't Paleozoics during that era. Yeah, I mean, I played Paleo in my Phantasm Spiral deck. So... Yeah, because they had to change the ruling on every single Paleozoic card, didn't they? Because they're not trap... Did they... How did the errata go? Were they now treated as trap monsters? Or were they still, like, traps that were treated as monsters? You know, because that's a difference. Because I stopped playing before... I stopped playing that deck around the time that that errata came out. Mainly because the Paleozoic engine fucking sucked at that point. We're gonna put Toad to 0. I'm just like... So there's no point in running these little guys. Good. Granted, I stopped running that engine when they ended up... Oh, hello, Ben. When they limited Card of Demise, I stopped playing the Paleozoic engine. What are we cooking? I am drawing Sid Highwind as a bird. Let's see here. No, Cirrus, that wouldn't work either, because, you're not allowed, because now you're expecting players to be able to count turns, and they stopped printing cards like that after, like, the GX era, because those are also a rulings nightmare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're not allowed to take notes, and you're not allowed to use dice to count in-game things. So... there you go. Snow? Oh my god, no. That's Skank, bitch. Needs to stay gone. She's legal again, isn't she? I remember someone telling me that Snow was legal again, and I'm like... No. Like, just no. That's a card that will never be power crept in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that has to stay gone forever. Like, just stay... No. Gone. We don't need you. So Cirrus. I know exactly how this will go in the rulings, right? Because in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a joint ruling that both players are responsible to maintain game state. So you will probably have issues of one player just going, I want us both to get DQ'd, or I want us both to have a double loss due to rulings, right? And you just have one player that just won't mention the end of the next turn rule. The opponent will draw for turn, and then the other opponent will go, you did not add card for turn, call a judge, they'll get a double loss. In a digital card game, you can do that because it's all automated, but you never want card effects like that in a TCG. Unless it's your card effect that's letting you do it, right? Because most people will always keep track of their own card effects, but keeping track of an opponent's card effect that affects you, that is a lot more difficult of an ask. Especially in a tournament scene in which you're playing for 12 hours straight. Right? So that's not something you would really want to do. Like, if it was a you may effect, then sure. You know? Because then at least that's optional and no one's going to get, like, DQ'd for it. Because there are legitimately cards on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list and other games' ban list. That aren't there for power level reasons, but are there for ruling reasons. Hi, Victory Dragon. How are you doing today? Like, that's a card that'll never get off the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list for no reason. Yeah, but serious, you see the issue with that, right? Is you've just had to make like 3 to 4 revisions on a card effect. What's the point of making the card at that point? Like, card design is hard. Trust me. No, actually, trust me. I've tried. It's one of those things where it's like, what sounds fun in theory, you playtest it, and you realize, fuck no, we're not keeping that. It's kind of like, Michael, you remember Cubics, right? The archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! From the Dark Side of Dimensions film. Apparently, in the original pitch for that archetype was that all of the kings and beasts could special summon themselves from the main deck by tributing Vjom. Yeah, that was never going to happen. That's one of those things that you read and you go, oh yeah, we were never going with that. Or at least that's the rumor, right? there was a couple like interviews that like alluded to that, so, and I could totally see that having been a thing because of how Diva played them in the anime, where you're like, oh no, they were supposed to special summon themselves from the deck. Yeah, because you can totally see that, like, but that would have one, that would have probably made the archetype good. And we can't have that. Granted, like, Cubics conceptually are like probably the most fun villain deck ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! Unfortunately, it went the way of all villain decks of how fast can we put out our 4K body. Oh, I'm sorry, our 3K body. Nova's only 3K. It is very odd. Very odd indeed. So, like, I do sympathize with, like, the game designers because, like, you know, card games are so hard to design. Because you have to account for both, like, tournament rulings and your player base in terms of how people are actually going to play the deck versus how you're designing it, you know? Because that happens all the time, right? Remember Metal Foes in Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember that. I remember that it was supposed to be this cute resource engine that loops on itself, so you always had material to pendulum summon. And then it became this wombo combo engine that was put into fucking everything. Because they didn't restrict the Metal Foe part of the... like the pendulum effects of Metal Foe cards. Yeah, it was never locked in archetype. Yeah, that was the problem, wasn't it? Very, like, that's true. But that is one of those things of like, ah, oh, this probably should have never... the fact that every single archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has to be Xeno-locked is a problem. I mean, look at Super Heavy Samurai. What a cool deck I wanted to build that I'm never going to touch ever again. Just, it's like, but I want to play, like, actual Super Heavy Samurais. I don't want to play Earth Machine combo. Oh, yeah, Abyss Actors. Love me some Abyss Actors. What a fun deck that doesn't do anything. Like, I kind of hate what they ended up doing with Abyss Actors. Just because it's like, oh no, it's Funhouse Lockdown now, isn't it? And the answer is yes, it's Funhouse Lockdown. That should have never been printed. No. Personally, and this is me personally, I know how the Abyss Actors worked in the anime. We need to forget that. The Abyss scripts should have been continuous spells. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And they should have had effects when destroyed by the opponent. Like, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but they definitely should have been continuous spells. You can rub in your opponent's face. Yeah, but I don't like how Abyss Actors went from this really cute OTK deck that wanted to cycle through their spell lineup to just a lockdown deck. I found that real disheartening to play. I'm like, this isn't why I picked up Abyss Actors. I picked up Abyss Actors so I can go pendulum summon Big Star, search Abyss King, and kill my opponent. You know, because that's a thing that that deck always had access to. I guess we still technically have access to that. That, and I love that they gave Abyss actors Link monsters that they can't use properly. Here's Melibadonna. Okay. Here's a Link monster. As I stare at these two cards and I'm like, but why? Why would you do that? Konami! Let me play this game! I don't care anymore. I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So long ago. Is Ash Blossom healthy for the game? No. I'll make that claim. You know what? Okay, my spiciest take for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? Hand traps like Ash Blossom, unhealthy for the game. All of the Ghost Girls, kill them. I hate all of them. Havness, perfectly healthy. That should be the way decks are designed from now on. Because Havness isn't make or break. Havness is not make or break. It just lets you play turn 0. And half the decks in the game do that anyway. So like if we just got more in archetype soft disruption rather than hard negate, I would love that so much. It's why I like Fire King Kieran. It's why I like the Bestials. Like, that should have been the direction for Yu-Gi-Oh! And I feel like because of the tier limit scare, we'll never get that. That's just me. I'm sure most people would disagree with that. Because of, you know, tier format. Tier format really made people cowards, didn't they? It's like, come on, guys. Tier format was actually fun, though. You got to pretend to play the game, rather than just not playing the game, like in cash format. Because of the timing of them? I mean, they, like, always resolve. So I never really had an issue with it. You, like, never really had issues with... You never had ruling issues with tier limits and stuff. You know, this isn't Dark Worlds, right? Where we're sitting there with a textbook going, it just works. Or, it doesn't work. Where's the colon in the effect text? Oh, I'm sorry, was it a semicolon? Is that how they differentiate cost versus effect in Yu-Gi-Oh? Was that what it was? Because, like, shit, man. That sucks. I did not like that shit at all. Yeah, like, I feel like if every single archetype in the game had 1 or 2 cards that worked similarly to Havness, then the game would actually be really fun. But Havness just came out, like, tier limits came out too early, is kind of what it is. Because in tier format, I felt like I was still playing the game. Like, As strong as Tier Limit was, both players were playing the game. It's one of the reasons why I still really like Wicross and Vanguard, is like both players are actively playing the game the whole time. And I never feel that way when I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And arguably, like, Magic has that issue as well, where not everyone at the table is always actually playing the game. Sometimes they're just there, and that never feels great. But, you know, that's the semi-archaic card design, right? Or, like, game system. Actually, that's what I really like about Rush Duels, is both players are playing the game in Rush Duels. They actually fixed that issue in that format, which is so impressive. Like, you can still brick due to poor deck building, but at the same time, like, it's your fault, usually. That, and they managed to make a format in which Pot of Greed is a bad card. Because of how Rush Duels play, no one would run Pot of Greed. And Graceful Charity is only an okay engine. Like, really only combo decks play Graceful Charity in Rush Duels. What did they change to fix it? Oh, so, Cirrus, if you're unaware, one of the rules for Rush Duels is during your draw phase, you do not draw a card. You draw until you have 5 cards in hand. So what this does is the goal of a single turn in Rush Duels is to exhaust your whole hand, so you always draw 5 new cards every turn. Because Pot of Greed is a +1 in terms of card advantage, it actually makes it harder to get rid of your whole hand. Because there are only 3 monster zones and 3 spell and trap zones in Rush Duels. So it actually can make it pretty difficult to do so. Especially with tribute monsters being the main mechanic in Rush Duels. If you end up drawing, like, 1 too many tribute monsters, you won't be able to actually, like, get rid of all the cards in your hand because of Pot of Greed. While, since Graceful Charity is a net 0 in terms of card advantage, yet that card's perfectly fine. Like, it's good, but it's also at 1 in that format, and not because of the ban list. They have, the Legend rule in Rush Duels, where cards with Legend, you can only run 1 Legend card per card type in Rush Duels. So you can have 1 legendary monster, 1 legendary spell, and 1 legendary trap card. And there are just better options than Graceful Charity for the Legend spell slot. Again, combo decks will still use it, but it's really nice that they managed to make that diversity in the deck. So, not as far as I'm aware, Cirrus, because you always want to get rid of your cards in Rush Duels. A lot of decks are made in a way to where you have to build a full field, because you'll have card effects that are like, if you control X number of archetypal monsters or X type, right? So a lot of decks, that's how they incentivize it, right? Or they want you to have a bunch of cards in your graveyard, so you'll summon a bunch of cards, and then hopefully your opponent will just destroy them. And they will, because it's Rush Duels, and that's just how the Rush Duel pacing works. Your board will be broken every turn in Rush Duels, and that's fine, because you will draw 5 cards next turn. Because even, like, your spell cards and stuff, right, you'll set them, just so that you can get a card out of your hand. Stop, it's never coming. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Which, personally, I just think is a really good design. Like, them doing that in that game. A shame that it almost fixes, like, every issue that the player base has with Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just like, oh, they fixed it with Rush Duels. Neat. Very neat. Then again, a lot of card games have gotten, like, really good recently in Japan. Shadowverse is amazing. Like, Shadowverse Evolve is what I mean. Like, what a great Hearthstone ripoff that's works even better in paper play now that we have a paper version of Shadowverse. I think the only thing I don't like about Shadowverse is that you have to keep track of your life and play points yourself. And they're not, like, game pieces. But that game is, real good. When they, the current set, it's, what's it called? Flames of Levante, or whatever it's called. It has those, collab cards in it. And Wicross just announced, oh, excuse me, a new product that will revolutionize the way that Wicross is played probably forever in a good way. Because now we can run one Lurig decks again. So it'll take us a year to be able to play that in English. Because in Wicross we're a year behind, which is a little bit sad. But it is what it is. But that just, like, opens up deck building by so much. Granted, that does mean the single Lurig decks will not be able to run peace cards, but they'll be able to run arts again. So that just diversitizes deck building by so much. Because now it's like, oh, do you want to run one Lurig? Do you want to run a team of Lurigs? Like, do Lurig assists help your deck more than arts? Because we haven't seen what the current art cards will be for Diva format, but very excited for that. I'm hoping that the art cards will work with not just the new decks or the retrained decks, but also, like, the old Divas. Because that's something that, like, I want to continue playing Umer. Because I'm a filthy savage. Because of course I play Umer and Wicross. That's the tax deck. If you're unfamiliar with how that game plays. Oh no, my opponent has to count their resources. They have to pay attention to the game state. That means I'll always win. Seems accurate, yeah. I mean, most people just assume I'm going to be playing a hard control or attack strategy when I, like, sit down at a table. Which is why it was really funny that I was actually known for, I played an aggro deck in Digimon for a really long time, and people hated that more. It was real funny. Because they're just like, play something else. Sits down with aggro deck. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. They assumed I just couldn't play an aggro deck, I guess. Is Commandramon aggro? It is. But I played that game, I played Commandramon aggressively in a way to where, like, no one knew how to play against it anymore. Which was really funny. Because I would not play Commandramon pure. I would have a couple other engines in the deck that were also aggro engines, but in different ways. I do kind of miss BT5 era Digimon. You could run a whole bunch of... That was before the game became fully archetype locked. So you could run a whole bunch of bullshit in your deck if you were willing to put up with the inconsistency of it. Which, yeah, I can do that. It's why people currently hate my mono blue deck that I have in Digimon, because it's this weird control blue good stuff deck that people are just like, why are you running all of this in one deck? And I'm like, I'm winning. So clearly it's working. But hey, it do be that way. Top energy plus aggro deck. Well, because usually, like, aggro players... not to be rude. Aggro players typically don't pay attention to the game state, right? So, if you... Like, how I normally play card games is I pay attention to every single resource in the game more than what I'm doing, more often than not. And so you put an aggro deck in my hand, and I know exactly which turns to push and when not to. Just because I'm so used to playing mid-range and control that it actually, like, makes it harder for my opponent to figure out how to deal with my aggro plays. And you don't see, like, typical aggro players playing like that, at least, like, in the stores that I go to. That, and it's fun to see people cry when they go like, wait, Josh can also play aggro decks? Because I also did that in Dragon Ball, as I played a value-based aggro deck for the longest time. Aggro players and anything. So, yes, most aggro players will go full speed, like, whatever. But it's the reason why aggro players will almost always lose against, like, a mid-range and control player. At least at the local level, right? Regionals, it's very different. Because those are aggro players that actually know what they're doing. But you need to understand the actual, like, curve of a game to know when to aggro and when not to. You know, because you have, like, Vanguard, right? And Vanguard's a game where, if you aggro a deck too early, you auto-lose. Just because of how Vanguard gets played. And that same principle isn't as aggressive in Vanguard, but it is present in some capacity in most other card games. Like, someone tried to aggro me in my blue control deck in Digimon, and that set me up for the rest of the game, and they could never recuperate their advantage. Just because of how damage works in Digimon. Where they lost their board, I drew a bunch of cards because they attacked me. Like... They set up my tamers for me, so I didn't have to waste a turn setting up my tamers. And they were like, oh. And I'm like, you should have read the game state turn 2. You should have known you shouldn't have attacked me turn 2. I'm playing a tamer-reliant deck. If I don't play a tamer turn 1, that means I don't have one in hand. And if I mulligan to try to get a tamer, that probably means there's a tamer in my security stack. Don't attack me. Until you know you have the advantage. It's the same way you play against Crossheart in that game. Because they lost everything when they attacked me. Oh my god. I got to play Tomoki from my security stack, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm set for game. and you just lost all of your best resources because Tomoki's insane and probably should have never let... Like, Tomoki is a tamer card in Digimon that probably should have never been put out on parole. He probably should have been banned forever, but I don't mind because I liked playing the Tomoki deck like years ago. That's weird saying years ago, but that is what it is. Let's see here. Bucket. There we go. There we go. There we go, we'll do that. Depends on the card game, actually. Vanguard lets you see your opponent's deck list if you want to on their app, Bushy Navi, where you can just see what your opponent's playing. You can look at their deck list ahead of time. Granted, you can't change your deck list, so that doesn't help, like, the most, but, like, it's a tool available to you. But usually you'll just find out in-game. Which, like, any player should be able to do that. Like, it's not hard. It's pretty easy to just... You see your opponent's turn 1 play, you know what they're playing. Like, that's not hard. That's not hard to do at all. That's almost a skill check by itself, right? Like, whether or not you're actually able to do that. Because I always know if I'm in for a very casual game of Vanguard when I, you know, stand my Vanguard and my opponent doesn't recognize the clan I'm playing. And I'm like, ooh, I'm not used to playing this casual. Like, oh, how new are you? Like... Like, I realize I don't play the most popular clans in Vanguard, but, like, if you're playing in a tournament, you should know what all 24 clans are. One, it's not that hard. It is very easy to read up on what every single clan does in Vanguard. Oh, whoops. Oh, that's not the lines I wanted to delete. It's these ones. That's what I wanted to do. It demands reading. Oh god, you're right. Card game players don't know how to read. Yeah, because a lot of leader or champion or like commander, whatever your flavor is, a lot of those card games like that, you kind of don't need to see your opponent's deck list because you'll know every card in their deck at the start of the game. Like, as soon as your opponent reveals what their champion is, you should know what every card in their deck is. I don't think that's a big ask. And like, if they don't know, well, that's on them, I guess. You know, that's just a skill issue at that point, right? Just the skill difference. Which personally I'm always fine with. It's like, if you're playing in a competitive scene of any kind, like, no one's gonna hold your hand, right? And realistically, if the game isn't specifically Magic the Gathering, it is so easy to just know every single card in the game that I don't think there's a real reason to care. We will maybe do that? No, we won't. Ito. So, like, is the champion out at the start of the game, right? Like, there are plenty of times in which you'll have, like, a control leader card, but an aggro main deck, and vice versa. There's plenty of things that do that. Even in games that, like, don't have leader systems, still have those kind of decks in it. Like, I play Commandramon more mid-range. It's a funny trick. It's, it doesn't work in paper play. I think it only works on online, like, digital card games. It straight up just doesn't work in TCGs. Players in a TCG are too knowledgeable for that to work. They'll probably know from, like, turn 1 if you're tricking them or not. Because whatever the first card you play is will determine that. At least on, like, a higher level, right? Yeah. Because any larger tournament I've ever gone to, like, I've never been able to surprise a player, right? Like, everyone knows every variant of a deck as soon as you go to a tournament. Fucks up their mulligan? Not really. At least not in a, paper card game. Because of how digital card games work, those games can be less consistent and rely more on the mulligan. In, paper play, cards, like, decks are too consistent for that to work. Like, unironically, it's just... decks can toolbox too much in those card games. So it's just kind of, is what it is. Yeah, one-trick pony deck can only go so far. Like, that's one of those decks that, like, I would probably bring to a locals once, have, like, one night of fun, and then never play again. You know, like it almost sounds like oh god. Almost reminds me of like Gradle Kaijus. Where it's like, I'm playing a mid-range deck. No, I'm playing this weird aggro strategy. And it's like, no, everyone knows you're playing Gradle Kaijus. It's not a secret. I'm sorry to tell you, friend. A guy thought they were so smart playing Gradle Kaijus at one locals I went to, and you know, you just don't summon a monster and pass turn, and suddenly their entire deck fell apart. Yeah, it's like, oh, that's so cute. You're playing that deck, adorable. You're dying today because you're playing that deck. Especially because I'm playing Pacifist, and all my monsters are recurable at the end of resolution to everything. So have fun. Man, I can't believe people were that dumb about Pacifist control. The amount of people I played against that would destroy my token and go, I'm finally rid of your stupid token, and I'd just be like, point to my field spell and go like, end of resolution, summon a new token. Like... and then they would call the judge over. The judge wouldn't know the field spell because we had a fucking idiot as the as the judge for that store at the time. And it's like, oof. Oh my god. And it do be that way. Well, it also helps that there wasn't a single aggro player at that store that knew how to play aggro. Yes, Cirrus. I knew a judge that would always rule in favor of my opponent, no matter if it was right or wrong, because they didn't like me. No, actually. So I just had to make sure that I won in ways where my opponent would not ask for a judge call. Just something, you know, you just kind of had to get used to. Oh, awful. Like it was a little bit awful, but like you just get used to it. This man ruled that they could have my token could get Book of Mooned, and I'm like, sir? Yeah. Because he just wanted his friend to win against me. They didn't. It do be what it is. Because that was back in the day that I main decked 3 copies of Heatwave. Ah, those were the days. The amount of games that, like, I would resolve Heatwave and my opponent would call the judge and ask if that card is legal for play. And I'm like, why? What do you mean? That was something that judge couldn't rule against me because it's like, it's the ban list, you know? I'm gonna question my sanity. Look, Heat Wave in a deck with no effect monsters. Because remember, Phantasm Spiral, that field spell is only live if you do not control an effect monster, which means Heat Wave is free. Like... That shit was so free. Easy wins. Like, the amount of games I won just because, like, no one could out Heatwave was the funniest shit in the world. People would be like, oh my god, I'm playing the new best deck, Sky Striker. And I'm like, Heatwave? Yeah? Okay. Even what's it called? I remember Thunder Dragon being really big in that format as well. And they also could not out Phantasm Spiral, like the field spell. Like, they had nothing. No one had anything. I was unbeatable. Mainly because no one would actually read the field spell. Or they would read it, but not comprehend it. You know how that is. Yeah, Sky Striker Thunder Dragon was kind of an awful format. But you know what? That was free wins for me, baby! Oh, good. No one knows how to play around Umi. It was always really funny seeing, like, because, like, Thunder Dragon Colossus can protect itself, right? Like, it banishes a Thunder monster to protect itself. And I would just be like, damage calc, negate your effects. Because Phantasm Spiral has Phantasm Spiral power allows you to minus a monster's attack by 1,000 and negate its effects. So I can activate it during damage calculation, and they would just lose their Colossus to one little token. Same with all of the Sky Striker stuff. Like, none of their damage manipulation mattered if, like, their effect was negated during damage calculation. The day that deck pseudo-rotated, you know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rotation of just being power crept, that was when I lost interests completely in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's like, it's my favorite deck. Unplayable. Oh well. And they never made a new version of it. You know how, like, usually, like, when a deck archetype falls off, they'll, like, create a very similar deck, but just with a different name. So you have to pick up a whole new deck core. They never did that with Phantasm Spiral. They were never like, we'll try this gimmick again. And they never did. I mean, I guess I have the current version of Umi Control, which I do own. Because anytime they print Umi support of any kind, I do buy it. Just, you know, because... Which actually, the next structure deck R should be Umi, shouldn't it? Because we got the Fire King structure deck. Like, it should be Daedalus as the next R, right? Or at least, like, I'm hoping so. Josh Bait equal Umi. Ugh, amazing. It's not my fault that I really like how Umi plays in Yu-Gi-Oh! It is not my fault. They made the deck too fun for no reason. Like, Is there Umi in Rush Duels? No. No, there is not. Like, Umi as a card exists in Rush Duels, but they don't have, like, the actual deck archetype. Yeah. Because, you know, they don't have Mako as a character in that anime. Because, like, all the Umi support is always, like, anime-related support to reference Mako. The guy that played, like, the Umi deck in the anime / manga. So, no shade at that. Just, like, that just is what it is. So anytime, like, they do DM era character support, I'm like, oh, we'll probably get Umi at some point in this lineup. Which show was Umi in? The first? You know? Mako is a Gen 1 character. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, we'll fix that later. Yeah, he played Atem in the Duelist Kingdom arc, and then played against Jinochi in Battle City. Isn't that Daedalus though? Like the Atlantean structure deck? That included Daedalus, didn't it? Because he was the original Umi boss unit. But yeah, like it is the, I did mean the Atlantean structure deck, but like I was pretty sure Daedalus was the cover card. Just because he tends to be for the structure decks. Because even the original Umi structure deck, he was the cover card. If he wasn't the cover monster in the Atlantean one, he was at least in the deck. Because he was the guy that was like, sacrifice Umi to destroy all other cards on the field. Yeah. From the GX era structure deck. Which was also a fire and water themed, like, thing. Yeah, because even, like, the modern Umi support wave has, like, Kiryushin Dark Reef, which also sacrifices Umi for a big plussing engine. Very fun deck. Remembering that effect made you feel old. Oh my god. I mean, thinking about that, like, GX ended in 2008 is definitely one of those, like, oh god. Oh, have a good night, Charles. Okay, we will do that. Yeah. That helps that pop a bit. That was not what I wanted to happen. Okay. There we go. Let's see here. Well, we're almost done with the inking. Probably another 20 minutes to half an hour. That's fine. There we go. Yeah. Oh wow, this song is quiet. Okay. Not gonna read Bakuto. Well, one, you don't watch Bakuto, no, the anime is kind of bad. But like, coward? Get in the robot, child. That shit's so good. But Uninstall has always been like a goated song. Like everyone loves that shit. Is another Ava situation. Man, Shinji got it so good in comparison to the Bakuto no cast. Like, bruh. Shinji got to live in the end. You just get to watch these kids slowly die off every volume into the manga. Like, the shit's so good. That shit's so good. It's like, Shinji, you can't even complain. You got, like... When he got a girlfriend in the end, he got a working class job, he's alright. I think the only one who didn't make it out that well in Ava was, like, Asuka, and, like, good. I love that Ano ended Ava with Asuka being cold and alone. That shit's so funny. Like, Shinji happily with his girlfriend. Asuka crying off in a corner. You don't like Asuka? No, Asuka's fine. What makes you think I don't like Asuka? She's a very well, like, written character. I just think it's funny. Yeah. One, it probably would have looked really bad on Ano's part if he did have, like, Shinji end up with Asuka, because it's like those two aren't making it as a relationship. What happened to Clone Girl? She ended up with Kaoru, actually. Kaoru picked up farming, and they settled down together. Isn't Kaoru dead? Oh, Cirrus. Do you not know? Because Evangelion has the same plot as the 7 remake. if you weren't aware. It's like definitely where they got the 7 remake concept from. Is it an alt timeline, Kaoru? I mean, like, sure, you could say that. Like, the body is new, I guess. But Kaoru is one of the few characters that keeps his memories every loop. It's like him and a handful of other characters. It's okay, Cirrus. The story's not for everyone, you know? That's part of the reason why Ava ended up being so niche by the end. Is most people just tilt their head and go, I don't know what's happening. That's pretty common. Well, 7 Remake is a simplified version of the story because, like, Nomura can't write anything complex. And even then, Ava's not complex. Ava's so easy to follow. Mainly because the story doesn't matter, so you can entirely ignore it. But, you know, people are still sitting there trying to figure out, like, oh, but, like, what about Sele's plan that they mentioned in the whatever? Does that mean that the thing Ethan? It's like, no. No, it doesn't. Anno didn't come up with anything. That's just a mystery plot point for a certain phase of the story. It doesn't matter. Stop thinking about it. Shit does not matter. Like, Ava is a weird rule of cool anime that everyone just overthinks. You know, because everyone's told to overthink it due to cultural osmosis. Yeah. When you watch the show and you're just like, man, Ray really did just pick up a nuke and throw it at at an angel. That shit's cool as fuck. That's like one of the coolest fight scenes in the franchise. Because most people forget that Evangelion's a super robot series. And the entire point of a super robot show is to point and go, isn't that cool? Like, sure, part of the gimmick is that your main character is from a real robot franchise, but like, you know, and acts like he's from like a real robot series, and you just have Asuka, who's just the super robot character, and that's their dynamic. It do kind of just be that way. Do you have a favorite fight scene? Man, I do really like the Ava 3 fight in the movies. It's not like the curtains are just blue. Yeah, right. I think people forget that Anno isn't a writer, he's an artist. So the script did not matter. And it's like, come on, guys, you should be able to read that into the script at the very least. Is like, that this is not the important part here. But you know how people are. It's like if Anno was like a novelist, then yes, maybe we should be paying attention to the script. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he is not. So we can safely ignore that, you know. You know, it's like paying attention to a Miyazaki movie, right? Because that man is an artist, trained animator. He does not care about his own script. He writes the script last. He's already animating the movie by the time he starts writing the script. Like, what matters in those productions is like the visual storytelling. Like, I guess the script is there for normies. I guess that's what that's there for. Because honestly, you can just take a Miyazaki movie and watch it muted. And still get the, like, entire story. You know, visual storytelling. You know, the thing that most people don't pay attention to. Yeah. Let's see here. Actually, it was kind of neat. I found a, like, speaking of writers instead of, like, writer versus artist, right? So I found an interview by Greg Weisman. You know, everyone knows who Greg Weisman is. And because he's been trying to revive, like, one of his major brands, you know, Gargoyles, a little bit more to the mainstream recently. So he's been doing a bunch of interviews to, like, promote that kind of stuff. And it was kind of neat to hear him, like, talk about his opinion on, like, Gargoyles and how he writes it in the current state of the industry and the blah blah blahs, you know, shit that no one cares about. Because that's definitely a writer that, like, so he's like a director and showrunner usually, right? Animation producer and whatever, but you can tell that, like, oh man, this man really only knows how to do storytelling, like, through his dialogue. And even then it can come off, like, a little bit dry. I do like that about his shows. Also, depending on what camp of where you are in the fan bases, right? You either like or dislike Greg Weisman, right? Like, if you're a Marvel fan, you probably love him. If you're a DC fan, like, you probably think he does good work, but also ruined one of the best comics from the 90s. And, you know, if you're a Magic the Gathering fan, then you hate his guts. I kind of think he's just kind of okay. Like, I like his work. I like when he does original work. I don't like when he writes adaptations, usually, or when he's writing somebody else's work. Because it's like, ooh, his adaptation of Young Justice, that was, It's like, good show. Why is it like this, though? Was like the question on everyone's mind. What'd he do to Magic the Gathering? He wrote a novel during War of the Spark. It is not a very liked novel, let's say. But, you know, those weren't his characters, so I chalk that up to, like, he's never been that great at writing other people's characters, like, ever. There was, like, the one time with Spider-Man. Because everyone fucking loves his Spider-Man. It's kind of funny, actually. Like, how much everyone just unanimously likes his version of Spider-Man. Because, you know, usually no one agrees on that bullshit. Because people still just go like, oh yeah, you know, the best Spider-Man adaptation, spectacular. Like, like I'm even in that camp. Where I'm like, oh, this will never be beat, will it? Tragic. Though hearing his opinion on one moment in the latest Spider-Verse movie was, I guess the term I would use is interesting. Because that was, you know, I didn't watch that movie, right? A personal thing of, like, I'm not going to watch this. But hearing him talk about like one specific scene in that movie, I was like, oh, yeah, that would be an issue for you, wouldn't it? Because he was the showrunner slash head writer for the animated series Spectacular Spider-Man, and that version of Spider-Man is featured in Spider-Verse. And like at the start of this section of the interview, he was like, okay, I need everyone to know that he was like, no, I like the movie. It's fine. And that he felt honored that his version of Spider-Man made it into the movie. But apparently he like hated the line of dialogue that the Spectacular Spider-Man said. So he's like, oh, I have mixed feelings on it. Like, and that made me like kind of sit down and go like, was he not consulted? Like, that seems a little weird in my head of like, wait, you're using like this other guy's version, like his specific version of Spider-Man, and you didn't like consult him? Huh. Kind of weird. I mean, obviously, because like Greg would have never signed off on that line of dialogue. And it's like, okay, that's neat. Because, you know, it's one of those nuanced things, right? Because it's like, oh, that's cool that he's there. Oof, that line of dialogue's not great. Like, he even said in the interview, he doesn't think of it as his Spectacular Spider-Man. He's like, he had said in the interview he has to mentally think of it as an alt-universe version of his own Spider-Man, because, like, his version of Spider-Man would have never said that. Oh, was the line of dialogue that bad? Yes. Yes, it was. I think anyone who has watched Spectacular Spider-Man would have been like, what the fuck? But naturally, everyone I've talked to that has watched the new Spider-Verse movie, none of them have watched Spectacular Spider-Man, so it do be that way. Like, it's just never come up in conversation. I didn't even know he was in the movie until I watched that interview. Because when he mentioned, like, oh, Spectacular was in the movie, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he says the line that he says, and I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. Because they have Spectacular Spider-Man agree with Miguel in the film. So his line of dialogue is like, sometimes you just have to let things go. And it's like, ooh, no, not this, Peter. No. Like, that's not Spectacular Spider-Man Peter. His whole thing is that he would never let someone go again. Like, he turned a blind, like, because that version of Peter is very much like, I turned a blind eye once, I will never do that again. So it feels weird that his one line of dialogue to Miles is like, yeah, just let your father go. Yeah, I'm kind of like, how did we get here? Like, did anyone watch the show? But I guess that's also part of the reason why, like, people to this day are always like, no, that, like, Spectacular Spider-Man Peter is the best version of Peter in adaptation. Probably will never be beat. Kind of one of those adaptations. Like, even with all of the shit he wasn't allowed to include because of movies and stuff, he did such a good job, like, remaking Spider-Man in concept. Yeah. And actually, he did such a good job of modernizing. Like, every time I go back to Spectacular Spider-Man, I always, like, and kind of taken aback by how well characterized everyone now is. Because, like, it takes place in modern day. You can't have them with their 60s era personalities, right? And the compromises he made to make everyone still feel the same but modern was really cool to sit and watch. I'm a big fan of his version of Gwen Stacy, actually, because it's like, yeah, this would be how Gwen would be in the 21st century. She's a little more bookish, a little more silent about things. And oh my god, like the MJ in that show, will never be topped. Because I'm usually one of those people that, like, anytime I end up watching a Spider-Man adaptation, I end up hating the Mary Jane. I'm just like, what the fuck? Read a comic book. They almost always, like, it's so annoying because they typically will give Mary Jane Gwen's personality. And that's so annoying when they do that. Because it's like, these are not the same character. You can't just do that. Like, oh well. It is what it is. MJ and Gwen in the same show? Yeah, they're friends. That's always how that's been. They were introduced around the same time in the comics. They're just friends. Like, the friend group in Peter's college era was Gwen, MJ, and Harry. That's the iconic, like, friend group. And they never put it in adaptation. It's so weird. Oh, hello, Ty. Yeah, they're pretty much always together, because that's part of the reason why Mary Jane and Peter get together in the first place. Is it's like, Peter wasn't that close to Mary Jane. Like, they were in the same friend group, but they weren't, like, close. They became close because they were both mourning, like, Gwen. You have that iconic scene where where Mary Jane almost walks out of Peter's life because of it. Which is, like, the scene that everyone points to of, like, this is the moment where they become a thing. Like, Peter is, like, really angry because, you know, Gwen died, and he just calls Gwen, like, a stupid party girl that doesn't understand, because of just how angry he is in that moment. And you see Gwen, like, about to leave the apartment, and instead she closes the door and sits next to him. That's how they get together. That's, like, a fan favorite moment. Granted, it's never been adapted, so most people, like, only comic book readers get that scene. Then again, they also never go with, like, MJ's real personality. Like, boy, that girl sleeps around. That's a sex-positive party girl that's always having a good time. And they always go like, no, we have to make her the girl next door. You know, we have to turn her into Gwen Stacy for no reason. Either that or you have the modern thing of they try so hard to turn her into Lois Lane. Yeah, Gwen's like the... I wouldn't describe her as, like, shy back in the 60s. When they modernize her, they typically will make her more of the shy girl of the two, just to give more of a gap between MJ and Gwen. But, like, that's not an incorrect statement. Like, because she wasn't, like, the big party goer. She wasn't, like that. Or you just make MJ black. I mean, like, that's not an issue. Like, her race doesn't really matter. Like, I care more about, like, them keeping their personality intact. Which I haven't watched the new movies, so I don't know how Zendaya, is that their name? I don't know how Zendaya does with MJ. Because they again got rid of Gwen in that series, didn't they? Like, I always think if you're gonna start Peter young, you need to have Gwen Stacy first, and not have him immediately with Mary Jane. That's a relationship that they have to earn. Like, because, like, them being together is not a guarantee. You have to, like, actually, like, show the audience why they're going to be together, or else, like, I'm not gonna care. Oh my god, like, I hate the Raimi trilogy Mary Jane. I'm like, who is this bitch? Because this ain't my MJ. She's just like, oh, I'll wait for you. Or you didn't show up to my recital? And it's like, that ain't MJ. MJ's the kind of girl that kicks down your front door and is like, hey, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot, and goes on a date with you. Like, that's the kind of gal MJ is. Which is actually how they first met. That's their first interaction in the comics. It's a bold choice, one might say. Hello, Chewie. It's what definitely makes it hard for me to even attempt to even try, like, a Spider-Man adaptation, because I just can't do it. Like, every single time I try to sit down and watch a Spider-Man adaptation, I'm just like, who are these characters? Who are these strangers? It's part of the reason why, like, I don't think I'll ever be able to try, like, the PS4, like, the Insomniac Spider-Man games, because I'm just like, I can't. Like, no. Yeah, serious. Like, she does seek out Peter once they are in a relationship, right? It's like, once she settles down with Peter, she's very driven to, like, stay with him and to be supportive towards him. Because that's, like, her character arc, right? Is that she, despite her party girl nature, she does settle down, but her personality doesn't change. It's why people like MJ so much, like, from the comic book side of things. Because, yeah, she's not, like, this smart, bookish type. I was talking about movie MJ. Oh, yeah, movie MJ just kind of sucks. She's just this wallflower with zero personality that's just there as a doormat. Like, I hate her. Like... She just sits there as in a damsel in distress, and I'm like, MJ would be doing stuff. MJ would be doing her own thing to try to get out of the situation. Even if she can't, she would be doing more. Homecoming MJ. Yeah, I don't know about her. She's just... One, she's too young. I always hate when they... It's just... No. Spectacular gets away with it because it's Spectacular Spider-Man. But, like, ugh. Because, boy, Greg Weisman did, like, everything he could to try to make that MJ feel like MJ. There were so many shot-for-shot recreations of iconic panels with MJ that just, like, every time I watch Spectacular Spider-Man, I'm just like, there it is. That's why. That's why she's so great. Like, they even kept in the, her first line of dialogue to Peter, actually. That was a really cute thing. During the homecoming dance episode, they kept... That's where they put the line where she goes to his house and says, like, you've just hit the jackpot. Like, that line of dialogue. And it's like, ah, yes, yes. Oh, no, it's like, because it happens the exact same way. Like, they have, Aunt May go, like, oh, like, the neighbors has, like, a... Like, they have a niece that, like, I want to introduce you to, Peter, like, because that's how she's introduced in the comics, is, like, Aunt May keeps trying to, like, get him to stop for a second, to meet this other girl, and, you know, Peter doesn't, because Peter's Spider-Man, so when he's, like, lost his date to a dance, and he's downtrodden, Mary Jane, like, that's... Because he's now, like, sitting down for once, Mary Jane's able to show up under the request of Aunt May, and that's when she says that line of just, like... like, yeah, so it almost, like, it puts her in power in the situation far more than Peter, like, immediately, and, like, that's their dynamic. Especially when MJ is arguably more secretive than Peter is. Yeah. Because her whole shtick is that she had to, like, grow up too fast due to her home life. And then just, like, once she moved out, she became the party girl. To try to, like, recuperate that lost time. She's cool. Shame about that everything with her, now that she's not allowed to really be a character anymore. Personally, I blame the movies, but that's just me. Then again, Gwen's not really allowed to be a character anymore either, right? Because nowadays it's like, oh, if we put in Gwen, it has to be Spider-Gwen, but Spider-Gwen in name only, because we can't actually adapt Spider-Gwen. Because, like, boy, we are not having a children's film about, like, Spider-Gwen fighting against the justice system and the New York Police Department. That is not happening. Why can't they adapt Spider-Gwen? Because her comic's just really political. Because her whole thing is about, like, how the media manipulates people and how, like, the justice system gets away with a lot by, like they having, like, a corrupt... Her arch nemesis is a corrupt lawyer. Like... Or at least he was, back when Gwen still had her own book. And she's always fighting against, like, the police department and how hard that is on her because her dad is the commissioner of the you know, Captain Stacy, right? Like, he's the head of the police department. So on one hand, she's fighting this corrupt justice system, and on the other hand, she's having to fight her own father and still have to, like, go back home at the end of the day and have to pretend that everything's okay. Like, her book is tragic in a way that's, like, really cool. They were never putting that in the Spider-Verse. They were never putting that in as part of her characterization. Yeah, because she, like, almost immediately gives up being Spider-Woman as well. Is the dad corrupt or a good guy in a bad system? It's nuanced. He has certain beliefs that she disagrees with, but he's also, like, they use the generational gap as part of the conflict, right? Because certain aspects of, like, his generation wants certain things still that, like, a younger generation wouldn't. And so does that make him bad? Does that make him corrupt? Or does that just mean he has a difference of opinion? Because he also immediately finds out that, like, Gwen is Spider-Woman. That's like an issue 1 that he finds out. And so they do just sit there at family dinner. And sometimes he's just like, so I saw what you did today. And Gwen will be like, I don't want to talk about it. But he's also not going to turn in his own daughter. So... And that makes that book so cool to read. And why I think, like, adaptations of Spider-Gwen are kind of meh. They also did a really cool thing in the comics where, so Gwen is part of a girl band, right? She's part of the Mary Janes, you know? And the songs that they sing within the comic, they actually produce. You can go buy them. Like, they actually, like, produce the full songs that they sing within the comic. It's real neat. This is the button I want. Okay. What is this? There's that. There's that. Okay. It's these two I need to pare down. Boop, boop, boop. Is it this? There we go. There we go. Try to turn her in before she runs away. Boring. Nah, I kind of like that she also, like... Because Gwen reveals her identity. And, like, if they do that in the movie, then that's fine. But I always liked that Captain Stacy was going to gun down his own daughter. And she has to remove her mask to be like, no, wait, stop. And it's real good. It's real good. But that's part of why I don't like the Spider-Verse adaptation, is like it pigeonholes itself too much. And then the writers are snarky about it as well. Like, really? Really? That was your plot for the second Spider-Verse film? Nah. We feel pigeonholed by having to, like, appeal to comic book fans. Then don't write a comic book adaptation. Like, oh my god. Like... If you feel uncomfortable or pigeonholed by writing these characters, then don't write them. Like, fuck off with the meta bullshit. I don't care. At least they kept that much in. I don't give pity points like that. The comic books have existed for too long for us to give pity points for adaptation, like barely getting around to it. You know, like, Spider-Man celebrated his, what, I think 2 years from now he's going to celebrate his, like, 65-year anniversary. It's longer than the fucking films have been around. I assume they'll try to put Peter back on track after that. Because his current, well, some of his current comics are a little weird. Like, I didn't really care for spine-tingling Spider-Man. I don't hate Zeb Wells' run, but I also think it's, like, problematic for fans. So, like, it has that issue. Dan Slott is doing Dan Slott things, right? We all know how that is. And what's it called? What does weird mean? The book is weird. That's really, like, if you're a fan of Spider-Man, you're gonna just be kind of sickened by it. Even though it's not poorly written, it's just making a lot of, like, bad creative decisions for the legacy of these characters. Like, oh, poor Ben. Poor Ben Reilly. I don't know how that got signed off on as, like, a concept. Where they turned him into a villain. Like, no one wanted to see Ben Reilly turn into a villain. That's not even, like, a good plot twist. That's just, oh no, he doesn't have his memories. He's a villain now. Like, because, like, Ben Reilly is arguably more beloved than Peter. Uncle Ben is a villain? No, Ben Reilly. Not Ben Parker. Because, like, even when I ask around, like, the Spider-Man community, people typically like Ben Reilly more than Parker. Like, more than, Peter. Like... And he was only Spider-Man for such a short period of time. I guess they couldn't take away his intrusive thought. Yeah, right? I'll just kill Peter, because I only remember Peter for some reason. I'm gonna become a Goblin King. And it's like, stop. Zeb? Please. People like this character, you can't do this. Because that character has been dead more often than he's been alive. And, you know, the fact that he was dead for, like, what, nearly 20 years? Like, 15 years, I think? Was, like, part of the reason why people liked him so much. It's like, oh, there was real consequences for his life. Granted, he's just, like, actually a far more engaging personality than Peter, more often than not. Because, like, oh, Peter kind of has his life together, and you just have Ben Reilly sitting there crying in a gutter. With his weird 90s mullet. What a good lad. Though they did release a really good Ben Reilly comic just like 2 years ago, but it took place in the 90s. So it was like, okay, we know you all hate what we've done with Ben Reilly now. Have a flashback story. And it just made everyone feel worse because it's like, that comic was great. Like, Ben Reilly Spider-Man, like that book that came out in like 2022, it's incredible. A little tragic in that case, because it's like, oh, it just makes everyone miss Ben even more. Personally, I want to live in the timeline where we did retire Peter in the mid-90s and Ben Reilly became the permanent Spider-Man. Because that was the plan. That was the whole reason why Ben Reilly was introduced, was like to take over the mantle of Spider-Man and give Peter an ending, right? He was going to lose his powers and then settle down with Mary Jane. That was like the original plan. Because writers felt like they kind of did everything that they could have done with Peter. And then like halfway through the story, that was scrapped, so. Very unfortunate. I don't know why Marvel is so against, like, changing mantles. Because DC does it often enough, and it only became an issue post-New 52. Why was it changed? Oh, the head editor at Marvel changed, and the new editor was just like, scrap the story. Which, you know, that just happens. What can you do? A bunch of that happens at DC as well. I mean, we had that amazing decision in 2011 where the head of DC at the time was like, I hate legacy characters. Kill all of them. Making everyone go like, wait, what? And he almost did wipe out, like, he wiped out pretty much everyone that was a legacy character, unless you were a male Robin, specifically. He let Dick, Jason, Tim, and Damian stay, but like almost all the other legacy characters at DC just like immediately vanished. Oh, and also if you were a Golden Age character. Which, like, guy, come on. Come on. People like the legacy characters. Marvel's legacy characters are a lot worse, but like DC's legacy characters, they're beloved. They're arguably more beloved than the people they replaced. Right? Like, oh god, my example doesn't work today. Damn it, I was gonna be like, because, you know, who prefers Barry over Wally as the Flash? And I'm like, god damn it, we now have, like, multiple generations of people that have grown up with Barry. Fucking Barry. He's, like, the worst Flash. You go back, like, 15 years and people would be like, oh my god, but Wally will never be replaced. He's the best. He's so much better than Barry. And then the New 52 happened. And the CW show happened. And now the legacy of Wally as Flash has just been washed away. It do be that way, though. I mean, at least Wally is back now. But the book is really awkward about it. Because they kind of have to, like, it feels like every other story arc, they have to decide, okay, is the Flash book gonna feature Barry, or is it gonna feature Wally? And they just go back and forth, and I'm like, can we split this into 2 books? Can we please split this into 2 books? I don't want to have to, like, every time, because I don't care about Barry. If I pick up Flash, I want Wally. Which is why the only Flash book I'm currently reading is Jay Garrick, The Flash, because at least, like, I know what I'm getting. That, and I like Jay, you know, Justice Society member and all that. Love Me by boomer DC characters. Yeah, I think that looks all right. Could maybe use a little bit more of a curve there. And I guess that doesn't need to change. I'm sure Wally will come back though, just because of the amount of actual salt from the Wally West generation of Flash fans. Actually, who is it in the new game? By new game, I mean Suicide Squad. Is that Barry or Wally? I hope it's Barry. Just because, like, it'd be really funny to just murder Barry. Could be cathartic, even. Why is that game $70? It's this live service game that's $70. Like, I thought it was going to be like most live service games that didn't have like that, and they're charging like $20 per alternate costume. Like, what? They're like, oh, do you want Harley Quinn's like a TAS design? Pay up $20. I'm like, what? I half was only thinking about buying that game just so to play the story. You know, since it's like, does it have a daily login system? Yeah, and all sorts of other like paywalls and systems. Like you have to grind up your in-game currency to get tickets to do like certain boss fights and stuff. And it's like, what? No. Because what, it's the last performance of Batman by Kevin Conroy, and it's like, well, this will be like, that's kind of important, and it's also set in the Arkhamverse. So for those who want like a continuation of that version of Batman, like this was it. And like it's DC, so I'm like, I was like interested, but seeing the monetization on it, I was like, I guess I'm not playing this. Oh well. Though the real they had announced that more of the like the battle passes will come in March, so they're giving people like a month before they have to start like buying battle passes to unlock in-game stuff and the seasonal content. So it do be what it is. Well, but I think that'll be it. There. God, that took me 3 hours. God damn it, I'm so slow at inking. Well, everyone, I guess I'll be ending the stream here. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys around.